Welcome back to another episode of Real Women, where we explore the issues facing the everyday Catholic woman and how we can navigate these with grace and purpose. My name's Karen Doyle.
And I'm Hosking, and you're watching Real Women.
On today's episode of Real Women, we're going to be exploring a topic that's relevant for all women. And that's a topic that relates to our vocation as women and really the fulfilment of who we are. That topic is of spiritual maternity.
We spoke in previous episodes about the qualities of the feminine genius and that of maternity. And this is not limited to biological motherhood. This actually encompasses all levels of motherhood, and spiritual motherhood is so important.
It so is. And I think there are so many women who are unable to have children. And so what does their womanhood mean if they're not actually able to bear biological children? And I know for myself, I came across John Paul II's writings on the feminine genius at a really pivotal point in my life. We actually struggled with infertility for 6 years. And I started to ask questions like, what does it mean to be a woman? What does it mean to be fruitful and multiply if you actually can't have children? And when I stumbled across John Paul II's writings, it actually gave me so much hope that there was purpose in my womanhood, even if I wasn't able to go on and have children.
Absolutely.
So powerful.
Yeah. And it's so important for women to be walking alongside one another in a motherhood role as well.
Absolutely.
I know that mentorship is so important in the workplace, but in our personal lives, it's honestly even more important. And that's where spiritual motherhood has a real place, especially in the lives of Catholic women.
Absolutely, because we need people who are ahead of us on the journey,
Yes.
but we also need to be reminded that we have other people looking to us as an example and that we are called also to mother them. On today's episode, we're going to deep dive into this vocation of motherhood, both biological and spiritual motherhood. Joining us today in the studio, we have a beautiful woman who's really lived into her vocation, both as a physical mother and a spiritual mother.
Roxanne Ristevski, as a wife and mother of 3 young children, Roxanne Ristevski works from home. Her life can be too busy to find time for prayer and silence. But living a life committed to God has helped her navigate this busy life and find peace and joy. She always wants to share the gift God wants to give us, which He has so generously bestowed upon us.
Roxanne, it's wonderful to have you joining us today. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Karen and Von.
Roxanne, can you share a little bit with us about your background, I guess your journey with your own mother and into your motherhood?
I'm a mother of 3 children, 2 boys and a girl, and growing up, Catholic faith, but we were never practicing. But I knew of Our Lady, and occasionally would do the Rosary with Mum. But I never had that mother-daughter bond. I'd see a lot of my friends, especially going through high school, I think, which was a really important time where you really needed to cultivate that mother-daughter relationship. It's such a fragile time in any child's life, whether male or female. You're going through the hormones and stuff. So, there was a real emptiness inside because I didn't really have that. And, I'd see a lot of my friends with their mums and they'd spend the weekend shopping or, whatever. And it just wasn't what I had. And I know, growing up and even coming into my adulthood, there was a sense of something was missing. And I knew it ultimately was that I didn't really have that closeness with my mum. And that's why, having women in your lives that can, give you that motherly love doesn't have to always be your biological mother. There was always a call within me that, one day I wanted to be a mum, and I'm going to love my children and make them feel worthy and whole and make them really feel loved and wanted. So, when I had my first son and then my second and now my daughter, even though we have arguments or we have really tough days, they always know that Mum loves them. You don't have to earn your love from me. You don't have to do anything. Just be who you are and I'll love you just like as Christ calls us. You know, he loves us for who we are.
Was that hard for you, not having that role model to you and then stepping into being a mother? Did you find that difficult?
Yes and no. I think naturally stepping into motherhood, it was really natural for me. There was just a real deep love for my children, and that's where, you know, that pyramid of priorities, I had it all wrong because I really just served my children before myself, before God and before my husband. So, you know, women can make that mistake of falling into that trap, but no, most definitely more so before children, it was hard not to have like that motherly bond because I'd want to attach myself to, you know, a woman that I admired, to have that mother, but there was still that longing. It's like, well, she's not my mum, is she? But, you know, there's that journey of healing.
How did you experience that healing?
When you understand that human love is flawed
And limited.
but God's love is limitless and perfect. And when you fall into that love, you're whole. It doesn't matter how many times you've been broken or hurt. And when you sit with him in silence and just let him heal those broken parts and let him love you and hold you, you start to rebuild yourself as a woman and as a mother. And I think coming into that made me a better mum as well.
Absolutely, I love that. And I think you pick up on something really important here. You've obviously had your own children and you're living your biological motherhood, but we can get caught up in the administration of our children's lives and the family life, but this greater call, and that's what we really are talking about today, is this call to spiritual maternity and how we do that. Another thing I just wanted to highlight, what you said there, where being a mum and talking to your spiritual director about going and feeling the need to do other things. I think some mothers can get caught in this trap of feeling like being a mother is not enough, that they actually need this whole list of qualifications to be somebody or to have worth and value.
Yeah.
And I always pull people up when they say, I'm just a mother. Yeah. Because we're not just a mother. Like, motherhood is the fulfilment of our vocation.
I agree with you 100%. And it's only recently in my journey of motherhood and spiritual mother and leaning into Our Lady, how important that really is, that, you know, in those mundane tasks, you know, when you're picking up the toy for the 100th time of the day, or you're doing the snack, and although you're so tired, if you do it with love and you're doing it with purpose and you're doing it for God, it becomes easier. It becomes like, yes, darling, I will wipe your nose for the 100th time today, but it's because I love you and this is what my role is. And, you know, you see those little fruits start to come out in your own children, and the way that my eldest takes care of his youngest, and it's just natural.
That's so great,
Yeah.
so beautiful. So you being a mother of 3 children, life is busy, right? Life is a juggle for everyone and women around the world. How do we manage all the balls in the air while still honouring our vocation and being, a presence of Christ in the world and drawing people to Christ?
First and foremost, priority is cultivating a life of prayer. You can't give what you don't have. And when you understand that everything given to you is by God, even the small graces of that energy and the courage that you need to face each day, when you're at your weakest, it's, God, please give me the strength to get through this moment. And having that prayer life to be able to attack the day and to, attack all the little tasks that you have throughout the day. One of the biggest takeaways for me during that masterclass was the pyramid of priorities. I found prior to going into this that my priorities were all wrong. Yes, I wanted to live for God and put Him first, but all the other priorities were wrong. So it just wasn't falling into place. And so I would always serve my children first before me, before the needs of my husband. And that was all wrong. So
Such a trap, isn't it?
It really, really is. And when I started, when I learned the period of priorities, and I realised that I serve my husband God first, of course, and then it's myself and then my husband. My children's needs were not dismissed. They were still met, but there was peace and harmony in my life, and God was still being honoured first through those things that I was doing.
And it's such a beautiful vocation, this vocation of motherhood, but one that's not valued in our society today.
The greatest gift, honestly, it is really the greatest gift. And, I fell in that trap of, I'm just a mother. Yeah. But what a great gift it is. Yeah. From the moment of conception to what your body, what God has created us women to do with our children, from creation to birth. And, we continue to mother that child throughout life. I think we have the best role that life is. Yeah. And even if, again, biologically, if you don't have your own children, spiritually, there is something ingrained in women that have that call to help and to be there for others. And I think that's just a unique gift we have been given.
Yeah, absolutely. To nurture.
Yeah. Naturally, yeah.
Yeah, I think and reflect on becoming a mum, and the years that I've been at home with the kids have been some of the most formative in terms of skill set compared to many other jobs that I've had. Yeah. The skills that I've honed in the home, quite incredible. And I think people dismiss that, or even as a mother you can dismiss that. But when you actually deeply reflect on the skills that you are learning and building as a mother, especially the emotional and patience and the virtues.
The virtues absolutely. I touch on that virtue, and you always have those conversations with your close friends of that patience of where do you draw the line of discipline, and you're trying to and it's not, God won't give you the patience, but he'll give you the moments to find patience in. So, reminding myself, okay, all right, he's giving me this moment to grow in that virtue.
And every moment, every nappy, every snotty nose, every drive, everything that we do is just ordered towards this love and this service.
Yeah.
How do you, as a mum, and how have you over the past few years, learnt to really value your role as mum? Have you done anything specific to tell yourself, or to look at or remind yourself each day of your role?
I think the biggest change is just loving my role as a mother. It's not, I'm not just a mum. There's so much that comes to being a mum. Like, we're raising the next generation of saints, right? We are raising these children into this world to make a difference. And when you see the fruits, like with my children, and everything is by example as well, not just what we say to them, but what we do to them and do with them and around them. And, just a quick example is my daughter will go to receive communion, and, she comes up for the blessing, and I kneel and, receive on the tongue, and she kneels and sticks out her tongue as well. But it's understanding that what you're doing is giving a gift back to the world through what you can teach your children, and giving your children as a gift back to God for what he's given to you.
Can you share a little bit about Mary, I guess, as your role model? Because she's just so beautiful. John Paul II says she's the exemplar, the perfect example.
She really is. And, when you really lean into her, and what perfect role model as a woman and as a mother, and you look at her life, and I think, I really reflect on her life, and she bore Christ into the world, but there were so many sorrows that she held within herself. Like, you think to yourself, could you bear witness to see your son, go through what her son did? And I think, wow, and she did it with such grace. And when I reflect on that, I think she has got this humility, but it's so powerful. And if we can harness just a little bit of her humility, what difference we would make in this world, and just the light that we shine within ourselves. And it's a piece. One thing that I've learned is if we can internally find that joy that will externally just come. So when we're exuding the joy, people are drawn to that and they want to know why. And it's like, I bring it back down to my faith, my love for God and my love for our mother. And, you know, she's the prime example. She's the epitome of what a woman and a mother is. She's just amazing.
I'd like to just speak into for a moment. I guess the challenge, there's some women who have not found someone to marry. They have this desire to have children, but that hasn't been fulfilled for them yet. How can they, I guess, experience and fulfill this idea of motherhood and spiritual maternity?
Motherhood and spiritual motherhood doesn't have to be with your own biological children, but there is so many ways and opportunity that you can serve that purpose. You know, going to your parish and speaking, you know, with the parish priest and getting involved in the community in that way, serving the church or serving, you know, the community within the church. And you find, you know, I used to do that as well, and I've had moments where I've been able to, you know, do the soup vans and help the homeless, and there is that that joy in serving and being like a mother to those in need, and it is really what God calls us, is to help those in need.
So in wrapping up this segment today, we're going to do our burning questions of the day, the questions that you most carry in your heart and would like answers to. So Roxanne, we're going to ask you a couple of quick questions and we want your fast response to each of these. So the first question is, who do you go to? Which woman inspires you the most?
How can we go past Our Lady? She leads us to Christ and ultimately leads us to heaven.
She's been a real pivotal person in your life,
She
hasn't
really
she?
has, yeah. She's been
beautiful.
amazing, yeah.
Praise God. We've been talking about self-care. How can women nurture themselves without feeling that sense of guilt, like mum guilt that so many of us talk about?
Mum guilt is real, isn't it? But you have to think about it. When you are empty, what are you giving to your children? You're not giving the best version of yourself to your children. So, you know, if it's taken a moment for that time out to, you know, go sit in your room quietly in prayer or have a nap just to rejuvenate, if you can present your best foot forward to your children, you offer something better to them. You can't give what you don't have.
So good. You can't give what you don't have. That's great.
So women who have not had a good relationship, and you shared about your relationship with your own mum, how can they heal from that?
Definitely cultivating a life of prayer. That is really, really important. Having that relationship with God, you really need to grow that relationship with God and bringing Our Lady into that. But also finding women around you that are going to support you and help you on your journey in life and in that healing journey as well.
Yeah, beautiful.
That's wonderful.
Mentors are so important. And so this next question is, where can women who are struggling go to find mentors?
Go to local parish, speak to your spiritual director, get in, reach out to the parishioners. I know a lot of parishes have like prayer groups. There's the Legion of Mary group. So, you know, there's a community out there wanting to welcome you with open arms.
Yeah, that's so great. And just finally, women who aren't mothers, what is the top ways that they can nurture the people in their lives as a spiritual mother?
I think just being there. You know, it's just being able to, if it's a quick phone call, you know, not, oh, it's them again, or what's happening now. It's picking up that phone call and saying, how can I be there for you? How can I help you? Even if it's just to listen.
Presence.
Just presence.
Yeah.
Ultimately just presence. And looking out to the community and saying, you know, if you've got that need or the desire to help, there's so many organisations out there needing volunteers.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thanks so much, Roxanne. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Thanks for sharing your story.
Oh, thank you.
Powerful. Yeah, so powerful. Really, really powerful.
Well, we hope you enjoyed this week's episode on Real Women, and we really hope and pray that you have felt encouraged in your vocation and elevated towards the fulfilment of this role of spiritual motherhood in your life.
Motherhood is not just biological. All women, married, religious or single, are all called to a spiritual motherhood.
So important. And also the role of mentors. We're called to be mentors and to be mentored. So we really want to encourage you to seek out those spiritual mentors who can help you grow, who can nourish your faith and your faith walk, but also realize that others are looking to you for your witness and your example and looking to you to be mothered. So we really want to encourage you to step into this vocation of spiritual motherhood. We look forward to you joining us next week on the Real Women series.
Are you searching for purpose of life? Discover your true identity. Stay tuned to Shalom World.